The television executive slid the contract across the mahogany desk, and John Wayne's knuckles went white as he gripped the arm of his chair. Wait, because what Wayne said in that room would either save his career or destroy everything he'd built over 25 years, and the clock on the wall was ticking toward his answer. Let me paint the scene for you, because this wasn't just any Tuesday afternoon in 1958. This was the day that would split Hollywood into two camps, and John Wayne was sitting dead center of the earthquake. The executive's name was Harrison Mills, though everyone in the industry just called him Harry. Short, stocky, with wire-rimmed glasses that caught the light from the Venetian blinds, Harry had built Channel 7's Western programming from nothing into something that was starting to make the movie studios nervous, real nervous. Wayne shifted in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. He'd walked into this Century City office building, thinking this was just another courtesy meeting, another glad-handing session where some television people wanted to shake hands with a movie star. But the papers in front of him told a different story entirely. Gunfighter's Code, Wayne read aloud, his voice carrying that familiar drawl that had sold millions of movie tickets. Weekly series, 60-minute episodes. Harry nodded, lighting a cigarette with steady fingers. 26 episodes guaranteed for the first season, option for 5 years total. Notice how Harry didn't mention the money yet. That was coming. Wayne's eyes scanned down the page, and that's when he saw the number that made his stomach drop. More than he'd made on his last 3 pictures combined. More than Republic Pictures had paid him in 5 years of B-Westerns. More money than he'd ever seen attached to his name on a single contract. But there was something else that made this moment feel like standing on the edge of a cliff in the dark. Every major movie star who'd ever taken a television deal had disappeared from cinema forever. Lucy and Desi, sure they were different. Comedy was different, but dramatic actors, leading men. Once you went to the small screen, the big screen forgot you existed. Wayne set the contract down and leaned back, studying Harry's face. You know what you're asking me to do. I'm asking you to be smart, John. Harry's cigarette smoke drifted between them like a gray curtain. Movie attendance is down 18% this year. Drive-ins are closing. People are staying home, watching their sets. Remember this moment, because what Harry said next would echo through every conversation Wayne had for the next 6 months. The cowboy picture is dying, and we both know it. But the cowboy on television? Harry smiled, tapping ash into a crystal tray. That's just getting started. Wayne's jaw tightened. He'd heard this song before, from agents and producers and studio heads who thought they could read the future in box office receipts and audience surveys. But sitting here, looking at the biggest payday of his career written in black ink, the words didn't sound quite as easy to dismiss. The door opened, and Wayne's agent, Bill Morrison, slipped into the office. Morrison was a thin man with nervous energy, the kind who always seemed to be checking his watch, even when he wasn't wearing one. He'd been handling Wayne's deals since 1947, and Wayne had never seen him look quite this pale. "Sorry I'm late," Morrison said, though his eyes were already on the contract. Traffic on Sunset. Listen to what happened next, because this is where the real pressure started. Morrison read the contract in silence for 3 full minutes while Wayne watched the smoke from Harry's cigarette spiral toward the ceiling fan. When Morrison finally looked up, his expression was carefully neutral, but Wayne had known him long enough to read the excitement underneath. "It's a good offer, John." "Very good." Harry leaned forward. "We're not just talking about a television show, Mr. Wayne. We're talking about owning a piece of the future." There was that word again. Future. Wayne had built his career on understanding the past, on playing characters who lived by codes that most people thought had died with the 19th century. Now everyone wanted to talk about the future. "What's the production schedule?" Wayne asked. 12 days per episode, Harry replied. "That's 3 episodes a month, leaving you plenty of time for personal appearances, endorsement deals, maybe even a movie here and there." Wayne almost laughed at that last part. Maybe even a movie here and there. as if the studios would welcome back a television actor with open arms. But here's what nobody in that room was saying out loud. Wayne's last picture, The Wings of Eagles, had barely broken even. The picture before that had lost money. Republic Pictures was talking about dropping his contract altogether. Stop for a second and picture Wayne's position. 25 years of clawing his way up from stunt work and bit parts. 25 years of Republic Westerns and Poverty Row pictures. And finally getting to work with John Ford and Howard Hawks and the directors who made pictures that mattered. And now some television executive was telling him that all of that was yesterday's news. Wayne stood up and walked to the window. 16 floors below, Los Angeles sprawled out under the afternoon sun, a city built on dreams and broken promises and the belief that anything could happen if you wanted it badly enough. "Who else are you talking to?" Wayne asked without turning around. Harry's reflection smiled in the window glass. "You're our first choice, Mr. Wayne. Our only choice, really." That was a lie. And Wayne knew it. Harry had probably pitched this same deal to Gary Cooper, maybe Jimmy Stewart, possibly even Clark Gable. But Cooper was getting too old for weekly television. Stewart was locked into his Paramount deal. And Gable would never lower himself to television. Which brought Wayne back to the central question. Was taking this deal lowering himself or raising himself? Morrison cleared his throat. "There's one more thing we should discuss." Wayne turned back to face the room. "Creative control," Morrison continued. "John would want to approve scripts, casting for major guest roles, the works." Harry nodded as if he'd been expecting this. "We can work something out." Notice how quickly Harry agreed to that. Creative control was something most television executives guarded more jealously than their own mothers. But Harry was giving it away like it was nothing. That should have told Wayne everything he needed to know about how badly they wanted him. Wayne sat back down, and this time he really studied the contract. Not just the money, not just the schedule, but the fine print that told the real story. "Exclusive television services," Wayne read. "That means no guest appearances on other shows." "That's standard," Harry said. "No anthology programs, no variety shows. We want to protect the character," Harry explained. "If people see John Wayne playing a cowboy on Gunfighter's Code and then see him singing songs on Ed Sullivan, it dilutes the brand." The brand. Wayne was becoming a brand. Morrison was scribbling notes on a legal pad, his pen moving fast across the yellow paper. Harry's smile got wider. "I'm glad you asked." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a folder thick with photographs and sketches. Toy guns with John Wayne's name embossed on the handles. Lunchboxes featuring artwork from the show. Board games and comic books. And breakfast cereals. "Conservative estimate?" Harry said, spreading the merchandise mock-ups across the desk. $2 million in the first year alone. Wayne stared at a drawing of himself on a lunchbox. 6 guns drawn, hat pulled low over his eyes. In the corner of the lunchbox was the Gunfighter's Code logo in bold red letters. Remember, this was 1958. Television merchandise was still a new concept, something most people associated with children's programming. But Harry was talking about turning John Wayne into a Saturday morning phenomenon. "How many kids you figure would carry that lunchbox to school?" Wayne asked. "How many kids do you want carrying it?" The clock on the wall ticked toward 4 o'clock. Wayne had promised his wife he'd be home for dinner, but this conversation was running long and getting more complicated by the minute. Morrison leaned over and whispered something in Wayne's ear that made the actor's expression darken. "What's the time frame for a decision?" Wayne asked. Harry stubbed out his cigarette. "End of the week. 4 days. Wayne had 4 days to decide whether to abandon everything he'd built in motion pictures and throw his lot in with a medium that most of his peers still considered beneath them. But here's what was really eating at Wayne. The money was too good to ignore, and the future Harry was painting was too clear to deny. Television wasn't going away. If anything, It was getting bigger every month. Wayne stood up again, but this time he moved toward the door. I'll need to see some scripts, sample episodes, something to show me what you're really planning. Already prepared, Harry said, pulling another folder from his desk. 3 full episodes, plus series Bible and character backgrounds. Wayne took the folder without opening it. Whatever was inside would tell him whether Gunfighter's Code was going to be television worth doing, or just another way to cash in on his name. Morrison gathered up the contracts and merchandising materials. We'll be in touch by Friday. Harry stood and extended his hand. I hope we can make this work, Mr. Wayne. I really think you're going to change everything. And that's when Wayne said something that nobody in the room expected. Words that would be repeated in Hollywood boardrooms for the next decade. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened when Wayne got home that night, because the conversation in his living room was going to be just as important as the meeting in Harry's office. Wayne pulled into his driveway at 6:30, the folder of scripts sitting on the passenger seat next to him. His wife Pilar was in the kitchen, cooking dinner and listening to the radio, the smell of pot roast filling the house with something warm and normal. "How was your meeting?" she asked, without looking up from the stove. Wayne hung his hat on the hook by the door and sat down at the kitchen table, the folder still in his hands. Pilar turned around, reading something in his tone that made her study his face more carefully. Wayne opened the folder and spread the sample scripts across the table like he was dealing cards. "They want to put me on television." The wooden spoon in Pilar's hand stopped stirring. Television. Weekly series. Good money. Very good money. Pilar set down the spoon and sat across from him, her eyes scanning the script pages. What kind of show? Western. What else? Wayne picked up the first script and read the title aloud. Gunfighter's Code. Episode 1, The Judge of Broken Creek. For the next hour, while dinner grew cold on the stove, Wayne and Pilar read through the sample episodes together. The writing was better than Wayne had expected. The characters more complex than most television he'd seen. The stories dealt with justice and moral choices, themes that had always drawn him to the better Western scripts. But there was something else in the scripts that made Wayne pause, something that felt almost like a warning. Listen to this, because it's important. The main character wasn't just called John Wayne. He was called the Judge, a former lawman who traveled from town to town, settling disputes and bringing order to places where the regular law couldn't reach. But in each episode, the judge had to make compromises that a real lawman never would. He had to work with corrupt sheriffs and crooked mayors, had to let small injustices slide in order to solve bigger problems. "It's not him," Pilar said quietly, tapping her finger on one of the script pages. Wayne looked up from the dialogue he'd been reading. "What do you mean?" "The character. He's not you." And she was right. The judge was a darker version of the characters Wayne usually played. More morally flexible, more willing to bend rules when bending rules got results. It was a character written for television, where stories had to be resolved in 60 minutes, and moral ambiguity played better than clear-cut heroism. Wayne gathered up the scripts and leaned back in his chair. "Maybe that's what television needs." "Maybe," Pilar said. "But is it what you need?" That was the question that kept Wayne awake that night, staring at the ceiling while Pilar slept beside him. Was this television character something he could live with, or was it going to slowly eat away at everything he'd tried to build as an actor? The next morning brought phone calls, lots of phone calls. Morrison called first, sounding more excited than Wayne had heard him in months. "I've been running numbers all night, John. This deal could set you up for life." John Ford called an hour later, sounding considerably less excited. "Heard you're thinking about television, Duke." Wayne had been expecting this call, but it still hit him like cold water. Ford was more than a director to Wayne. He was a mentor, the man who'd taken him from Poverty Row westerns to pictures that would last forever. "It's just a consideration, Pappy. Nothing decided." "Television," Ford said, and Wayne could picture the older man shaking his head. Next thing you know, you'll be selling breakfast cereal. Actually, Wayne thought but didn't say. Breakfast cereal was exactly what they wanted him to sell. Ford's voice got quieter, more serious. You know what happens to actors who go to television, Duke? Wayne knew. He'd seen it happen to others. Once you became a television actor, the movie business forgot you existed. You became a weekly visitor in people's living rooms instead of a larger-than-life figure on a movie screen. But Ford wasn't finished. I've got 2 more pictures planned with you. Good pictures. Monument Valley pictures. Monument Valley. Wayne could close his eyes and see it. The red rock formations stretching toward the sky. The vast empty spaces that made men look small and stories look epic. Ford's Monument Valley pictures were the ones that made Wayne feel like he was doing something more than just entertainment. What kind of schedule? Wayne asked. First one starts shooting in 6 months. Second one, the following year. 2 pictures, against 45 hours of television in the same time period. Morrison called back after lunch with news that made the decision even more complicated. Republic's pulling out, John. They're not picking up your option. Wayne had been expecting this too, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the stomach. Republic Pictures had been his home base for over a decade, the place where he learned his craft and built his reputation. What's their reason? Box office. The last 3 pictures didn't perform, which brought Wayne back to the central reality. Movie offers were getting scarcer, and television offers were getting bigger. But that afternoon brought a phone call that changed everything. Wayne was in his study, rereading the gunfighters' code scripts when the phone rang. Hawks was different from Ford, less paternal but equally respected. He directed Wayne in Red River and Rio Bravo, pictures that had proven Wayne could act, not just swagger and shoot. Duke, Hawks said, his voice carrying that familiar dry humor. Heard you might be going into television. Thinking about it. Well, before you sign anything, I've got something you might want to hear. Hawks paused, and Wayne could hear ice clinking in a glass on the other end of the line. Warner Brothers wants to do another picture with us. Big budget, good script, Monument Valley locations. Wayne felt his pulse quicken. What's the story? Cavalry picture. You play an officer trying to prevent a war with the Apache. It's got everything. Action, character development, moral complexity. The kind of picture that matters. Hawks let that sink in before continuing. But here's the thing, Duke. If you take this television deal, Warner Brothers walks. They're not interested in working with television actors. And there it was, spelled out as clearly as anyone could make it. Television or movies. Choose one. Wayne set down the phone and walked out to his backyard, where the Los Angeles evening was settling over the hills like a warm blanket. 25 years of working toward moments like this. Hawks calling with a Warner Brothers picture. And now he had to choose between that dream and a television contract that would pay him more money than he'd ever imagined. Wait, because this is where the story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. The next morning, Wayne drove back to Harry's office, but this time he wasn't coming for a meeting. He was coming to deliver his answer. Harry was waiting with the contracts already prepared, confident that the money and the merchandising and the future of television had won the argument. Morrison was there too, briefcase open, ready to finalize the deal that would transform John Wayne from movie star to television pioneer. Wayne sat down in the same chair where he'd gripped the armrest 3 days earlier, but this time his hands were steady. Before we start, Wayne said, I want to ask you something. Harry nodded, pen already in hand. Do you know why I became an actor? It wasn't the question Harry had been expecting. To entertain people. Wayne shook his head. To tell stories that matter. Stories about what it means to be a man, about right and wrong, about standing up for something bigger than yourself. Harry's pen stopped moving. Those scripts you showed me, Wayne continued. They're good scripts, but they're not my stories. Morrison shifted uncomfortably in his chair. John, Maybe we should discuss the financial implications. Wayne held up a hand. I've been thinking about what television is, Harry. It's people watching stories in their living rooms, in their pajamas, while they're eating dinner or doing homework or half paying attention. Harry leaned forward, sensing where this was going. Movies are different. Movies are people getting dressed up, driving to a theater, sitting in the dark with strangers, all focusing on the same story at the same time. Movies are events. Wayne stood up, and for the first time in 3 days, he felt completely certain about something. I'm not ready to stop being an event. The silence in the room stretched for 10 seconds that felt like 10 minutes. Harry was the first to speak. The offer won't be available indefinitely, Mr. Wayne. I understand. Morrison looked like he was going to be sick. John, can we at least discuss this privately? Wayne was already moving toward the door. Nothing to discuss, Bill. Some things are worth more than money. And then Wayne said the words that Harry would repeat to reporters for the rest of his career. Words that became legend in Hollywood circles. I didn't get into this business to become a lunchbox. Wayne walked out of that office and never looked back. 6 months later, he was in Monument Valley, shooting the Hawks picture for Warner Brothers. 2 years later, he made Rio Bravo, which proved that Westerns weren't dead. They just needed to be made by people who understood what made them special. Harry Mills went on to create Gunfighter's Code with a different actor, a younger man with a face that looked good on a lunchbox. The show ran for 3 seasons before disappearing into reruns, exactly the kind of forgettable entertainment that Wayne had feared becoming. But here's the part of the story that most people don't know. 10 years later, when television had grown up and started making programs that rivaled movies in quality and ambition, Wayne was offered another television deal, a different kind of deal, for a different kind of show. And that time, he said yes, because by then, Wayne understood something that took Hollywood a decade to figure out. The medium doesn't make the message. If you enjoyed spending this time here, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing. A simple like also helps, more than you'd think. And if you want to hear about the night Walt Disney called Wayne with an offer that nobody saw coming, tell me in the comments.